Major League Soccer clarified their participation and their position on the domestic cups, most namely the Open Cup. Who's going to be in it? Who won't be? Who's going to be in the rearranged Leagues Cup? Now we know. Major League Soccer, in short, announced that the top performing teams in the league will go to the League Cup, bottom performing teams to the Open Cup, and then every Major League Soccer team will need to participate in at least one, but no more than two competitions moving forward.
All right, so we got the graphic that MLS put out. It's difficult to see this on our screen because the logos, the badges are very small in some cases. And if you don't know, especially in that MLS Next Pro area that are competing in the Open Cup, some of those are not badges you'll know. Carolina Core, for example, you can kind of barely see the little fox on the background with the sunset. It's a nice badge, by the way. Tacoma Defiance is down there. Anyway, is this progress is the conversation that is happening right now, Rob? Because obviously last year we had the whole big brouhaha. Major League Soccer is critical of the Open Cup. Don Garber goes public with his displeasure with the way the Open Cup is run at a U.S. Soccer board meeting, not as MLS commissioner, but as a board member of U.S. Soccer. That then created this thing, MLS is not going to participate. And then okay, we're going to put some of our teams, and then a lot of MLS Next Pro teams. And so they are framing this as what? A doubling of the teams participating in the U.S. Open Cup, which is absolutely manipulating the messaging.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's absolutely manipulating the messaging. Now, there has been this drawdown on the Leagues Cup, which last year before, involved everybody. Every single team was involved. Now, there are only 16 teams involved. So the league is kind of saying, well, the Leagues Cup needs to change, and we don't want to put all our teams in it. But it's still very important because look at the number of teams that are participating in the League Cup versus the Open Cup. And then, of course, you have the MLS Next Pro teams. And you can't have, because of U.S. Soccer rules, and this is standard around the world, you can't have affiliated teams playing one another in a competition. So if the Columbus Crew are going to be in the Leagues Cup, and not in the Open Cup, and the Columbus Crew 2 are going to be in the Open Cup, then Columbus Crew. Again, this is so imperfect, but being sold to us as progress. I'm not even sure how I feel about it right now.
Mike Thomas in the chat saying very deliberately positions Open Cup as a less than cup compared to the Leagues Cup. Yeah, I mean, well said. I mean, you can't say that. I mean, and I don't know if you just said it just now, but this separation of these teams prevents last year's winners from defending their title. I mean, that's inherently, like, you always want to defend your title no matter what competition you're in, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's ridiculous, right? Like, if there's anything that sort of like fundamentally feels wrong about this, it's that we have a situation where a defending champion is not defending their title. And, that's disrespectful to the Open Cup. I mean, first and foremost, from a traditional perspective and, what's important and this isn't even really like, oh, we're aping what other countries do, right? Sometimes that is a way that people think about soccer in this country and like, oh, we should do this because England does it or because Italy does it or because Spain does it. And I don't know if I always love that because America can be different. There's no rules that say we have to do things exactly the same way as other countries. But in this case, this tournament goes back 110 years now. I think we're at 110, something like that. This is a tournament that existed well before Major League Soccer. And if you are going to involve yourself directly and truly with American soccer in a way that, say, the NASL 1.0 did not, because they did not participate in the Open Cup, well, then you should be putting all of your teams in this. Not just because that's what they do in England in the FA Cup, but because that's always been the case for U.S. soccer affiliated leagues in America, going back to a time before cars, Rob, or when cars were brand new. They didn't even have dashboard, music or anything like that. I don't know what I'm thinking. Anyway, continue.
I got to point out, I got to push back on some conversation in the chat. Picata saying nobody who complains about MLS Open Cup watch the Open Cup. And I really have to push back on that because I think it was even last year, the year before, on MLS.com's website when they did a year in review. I think 2 or 3 of their top 10 moments of the year were in Open Cup themselves. Cincinnati fans, tell them that the Open Cup didn't matter.
Sure.
Tell there's a long list of memories that are core memories to a lot of different fan bases where that moment happened in a U.S. Open Cup. And I'll admit, yeah, there's some games that are pretty drab that kind of like come and go and you don't notice. But some of the all-time classic, at least I've talked to many people, myself, games that really stood out were in the Open Cup.
I also point out that there are teams not participating in anything here. I mean, do you? Okay, maybe I'm wrong about that, but there's certainly there's also clubs that have proud traditions in the Open Cup who aren't participating in the Open Cup. Seattle, Sporting Kansas City, those two teams have 4 Open Cups each. They're tied with the Chicago Fire for most Open Cups won.
Yeah,
by
tell
an
a
MLS
Fire
team.
fan that the Open Cup doesn't matter.
They're tied for most Open Cups by an MLS team, and if they win another one, they would tie the all-time record, which is currently held by Bethlehem Steel, the original Bethlehem Steel, and Maccabi Los Angeles. Those two teams have 5. So the only team that can actually meet that number and tie that record and become the winningest MLS team in this competition ever is Chicago, because neither Seattle nor Sporting is competing in this year's edition. And if, let's say, I don't think it's likely, but let's say the Chicago Fire win the Open Cup. If you're a Sounders fan or a Sporting Kansas City fan and you care about this tournament, wouldn't you be like, what the hell? We didn't even have a chance to play for it. They beat us to it, and we didn't even get a chance. Like, come on. Now, I do want to add more to this conversation because a man who's been in the chat watching the show today, Jonathan Tannewald, who writes at Inquirer.com in Philadelphia on American soccer topics, does it as well as anybody. Please support Jonathan and subscribe to the Philadelphia Inquirer. He had this story yesterday about the Open Cup. MLS and U.S. soccer make progress towards peace over the Open Cup. This is a quote from Nelson Rodriguez, who is involved in the league's executive group now. I can't remember what his title is. It doesn't really matter. Nelson Rodriguez is a mouthpiece for the league on issues of competitive things. Formerly of the Chicago Fire, formerly of Chivas USA. You should, if you're a Fire fan, you definitely know who Nelson Rodriguez is. Quote, "We wanted improved travel reimbursement for all teams. Our view is no team should participate in the Open Cup at a financial loss. We think greater transparency on seeding and draws and how is important. Better promotion of the matches is important. Venue standards and field standards become important. We believe there should be more amateur versus pro games because that's where the richness and the history and the charm comes in." This is all manipulating the narrative to MLS's ends, right? They've built up some excuses for why they're not putting all their teams in. And they're saying, look, there's problems with the competition. I don't think that the approach to something that has this much history should be to pull your teams out. You should read the article at the Inquirer that Jonathan wrote on this. It's got a lot more in it, some more quotes from Nelson Rodriguez.
And some of this connects with the previous segment about the USSF versus NASL suit of having too much power in one bucket with MLS. And because if you recall, pre this reorganization of the tournament, U.S. Open Cup had adjusted their whole schedule and the way this was all formatted to placate to MLS's needs. And let's forget we're talking about waivers and whatnot as well with the lawsuit. There's a FIFA mandate that all teams of all stature participate in their domestic cup. So they're getting a waiver on that as well. So there are, a few number of legitimate gripes. I know some people, there's this talk about, chicken or the egg. How do we make this competition make money? Da-da-da-da. But yeah. I think this quote from Nelson Rodriguez, if you didn't know who he is, encapsulates his role for MLS perfectly. He is the mouthpiece for Spin Zone, and him saying, look, there's a problem with this when the competition would obviously make the changes to placate to them again if needed, but you're just kind of creating these issues when they're not really here. And then it's a little bit rich when he says, the amateur versus the pro games are the ones that drive interest. It's like, well, you just decreed something that eliminates half of your teams from participating in that and creating those pro versus amateur matchups. So it's a bit of a hollow statement you got in front of us here, Jason.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of that. It's a lot of bluster. It's a lot of justification for pulling out of the tournament, a tournament that they don't control. And it certainly felt originally when they did this last year that it had a lot to do with Apple saying, wait a second, Lionel Messi's going to play in a competition that we don't get to broadcast. That's not what we signed up for. How dare you take away, our golden goose and have him play in a different competition altogether. So, I don't know if that's exactly what's in play. I mean, obviously, Messi and Miami made a run to an Open Cup final, and I imagine that the Apple executives were upset about that. It was drawing attention. There is a lot more to this story in Jonathan Tannenwald's piece of The Inquirer, so definitely check that out. But also, please go over to thecup.us and read what Josh Hakala and his team, Jake Sillick, has a story on this that outlines some of the detail here, because there's things about venues and how they're defined, primary venues, who has to use them. There's attendance that matters or capacity that matters here. There's also some things about hosting and who will host and who will be away and sort of how that plays out. This is not a compromise that's going to make everybody happy. Clearly, there will be some absolutists who say MLS teams should all be in this thing. What the hell is this? But I do think if you are a supporter and a booster of lower division soccer, there's some stuff here that you can kind of sink your teeth into and think, all right, I see why that could be beneficial to us. Meaning, again, lower leagues, lower division teams, maybe even the amateur sides as they go into this.
We shall see how this all plays out, but the Open Cup and Leagues Cup participations revealed here this week. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to this live episode, and thank you for subscribing to the channel Morning Kick Around at on YouTube. We are on the march to 1,000 subscribers. Follow us along on social media at mkickaround and on email morningkickaround@gmail.com. Brand new to the show, we have a Ko-Fi page, ko-fi.com/morningkickaround, where you can buy us a coffee or choose to donate any sum you would like. Do you have any final words before we kick on out of here and train our eyeballs to watch 18 games of soccer?
Good luck. God bless. Good luck. Godspeed. That's what I want to say. Godspeed.
All right. Thanks, guys. See you on Friday. And until then, enjoy your soccer.